Meet Bob Novo. He's a senior service delivery director at BT. He's had a long tenure in telecom industry. Worked with the interesting thing I noticed on your bio is you've been with all incarnations of Bell Labs.
Yeah,
Bell Labs, Lucent Bell Labs, Nokia Bell Labs, and so on, right?
correct. I stayed with Bell Labs as everything changed around me,
Yes,
and
yes,
the
yeah,
one constant was Bell Labs.
yes. But now you're with BT, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So take it from here, Bob, and tell us about digital transformation in telecom industry.
great. Thank you. And go to. Okay, can you see the?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect,
You see your
perfect.
slide. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, thanks, Atul. Thank you for having me here. As Atul mentioned, I'm with BT right now, or British Telecom, as we're still known. BT, the abbreviation. For those of you who haven't been over to the UK or don't have the telecom background, BT is the primary service provider over in Great Britain, the equivalent of a Verizon or AT&T here. You may note that I'm here, based here in the U.S. BT also has a global footprint, supporting many multinational global customers, primarily Fortune 500 suite. And my role is I look after voice services, unified communications, particularly here on this side of the pond in the Americas. So, as Atul mentioned, I have a long history in telecom. Prior to joining BT, I was with Bell Labs, and in particular the consulting arm of Bell Labs, working with major telecom service providers throughout the world, and as part of that, engaged in many a digital transformation project with various customers. So I'll expand here a little bit on some of the different projects that I've encountered and what it means in the industry. So and have you seen my slide change? Just want to
Yes.
make sure.
Yes.
Perfect. So first, let's first step is when Atul first approached me about presenting at this conference, and thought about, well, what is digital transformation? What does it mean? And you'll see it, common themes is what some of the other presenters have shown, is that it's a quite vague term. Almost at some points, it's an industry buzzword. Means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I want to at least set the table and say what it means to me. So as a starting point, I went like any good person, went to Wikipedia, downloaded the description or definition of digital transformation off Wikipedia, but I did make some changes to it, to what it means to me. And one of the key things I wanted to call out is, I view digital transformation as a revolutionary change. I find that sometimes it can be, if it's used too widely, it can mean just about any software tweak to the network, any um, minor digital change. And I wanted to call out the word transformation. It represents a significant change, either to a process or to the infrastructure, and I'll expand on that a bit more. So what are some of the takeaways? Again, this is should not be new to anybody who is involved with digital transformation in any industry. The idea is having benefits through savings, efficiencies, better performance, better handle on the customer, more profitability, etc. I mean, there's got to be some justifier to do this, and these are the various ones, and a good digital transformation project will be able to reap benefits out of several of the bullet points here. So what does it specifically mean? And it won't belabor this slide because these are trends you've seen through all, throughout the whole conference. There's leading edge technologies, cloud, as a service, various as a service platforms related to cloud, AI, machine learning, data and analytics, blockchain. There's others that we've heard, and these are general digital transformation trends that can benefit any industry, telecom included. But if we ask ourselves, what does it mean in the telecom industry? There are terms that, yes, they are applied in other industries because there is a telecom infrastructure that underlies benefits, such as IoT. IoT is one that many industries are embracing and benefiting from. Certainly, there's an infrastructure that how the devices all need to communicate with each other and collect the data and put it in a useful format, and that is driven by telecom underneath it. 5G is another term, unified communications, digital voice, and again, I'll expand on these a little more and examples throughout the talk. Now, one of the key points here is at this point is we said, well, what does it mean in the telecom industry? But then, we have to ask ourselves, well, now 2020 hit, and as you've all heard the term new normal, things are changing. COVID is driving a lot of rapid changes in different vertical industries, and telecom is no difference. So some of the things we've been challenged to do within 2020. So a big one is supporting the health industry. Telemedicine is ramped up. Field hospitals in the UK in particular, where we have a presence, several field hospitals were ramped up, and we quickly had to go in and put in the telecommunications infrastructure underneath them to allow the doctors and nurses and staff to communicate. Here in the US, we saw a similar example where here in the New York area, a field hospital was set up during the early days of COVID in the Javits Center on the west side of Manhattan. So that's something that had to be supported. Another big change we've seen is people working from home, learning from home. So video conferencing is ramped up. Virtual private networks to provide security for people accessing their enterprise network and enterprise data from home and from remote locations is something that's ramped up, and not just in terms of quantity, but also a lot of different scenarios with how people have different home networks set up, different applications that are running that were never looked to be used outside of the office now need to be working from home over a virtual private network, and interworking issues have come up. And last but not least, social distancing. We are a company as all the other companies here, all the other verticals we've been discussing, and folks need to be socially distant. People in call centers who don't have the option to work from home do have to go into the office. They do need to be spaced, and the physical infrastructure to support that, as well as field personnel. Again, in the UK, our technicians that go out to homes and do service visits for people whose broadband service or telephone have gone down now need to follow socially distancing protocols, and we have to do our effort to keep people safe. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, next few slides I'm going to share some examples of people who in various verticals, and these surveys were done in the UK, but what we'll see, I would venture to say that in most developed countries, here in the US and in other countries, we'd probably see similar results. So first we looked at enterprise leaders and said, what technologies exist within your organization? Again, this is key, looking from the point of view of digital transformation. What are the technologies that are driving that transformation? And it's a little bit interesting here that aside from voice over IP, uh, the uptake of these technologies in industry as a whole, in enterprise as a whole in the UK is pretty low. Some of these, some of the top ones here, again, aside from VoIP, are at about 25% or less. And, more than a fifth of the companies basically have not embraced any leading edge technology, have not been looking at transformation in their networks. Similarly, now let's see, well, what are the plans in the next 5 years? And again, you see a fairly surprising trend in that just under a third of these companies are not planning to adopt any technology. In other words, they're not planning any digital transformation within the next 5 years. And again, aside from 5G, which 5G, I would argue, is to a degree for enterprises is almost like a passive transformation, in the sense that 5G is adopted by the mobile service provider. The enterprise will adopt applications and so on, but really is dependent on the mobile service provider to deploy the 5G footprint in order to transform. So aside from 5G, we see these plans, these uptake plans are pretty low. And last but not least, we also look at the different leaders. And again, these are non-technical people. This is not the CIO or IT organizations within the companies. These are the leaders, the CEOs, COOs, and executives within companies that don't focus on the technical arm of the company. But you see, there's still a pretty high lack of knowledge regarding a lot of leading edge technologies that would drive digital transformation. So this is something outside, again, outside of IT, outside of the tech arms. Many companies are still lagging in areas of digital transformation. It's something that over the next few years, it's really up to the leaders in IT and telecom, folks such as ourselves on these conferences to drive that, to evangelize that within the companies, because otherwise there's still a quite a bit of lack of knowledge regarding what leading technologies are, what digital transformation means, and we need to look at that more closely. Okay, let's ask ourselves, well, what are some examples of digital transformation? And as we were saying earlier, it's a wide area. We can come up with a lot of different terms, but there's three from a telecom perspective, at least. There's three significant areas that we have. One is a network or infrastructure transformation. That from the point of view of the equipment that actually provides the connectivity and service, looking at modernizing that, looking at changing that to take it to the next generation. And some of these examples here we see is, for instance, converging and merging fixed and mobile networks, so that the same assets provide service for both fixed and mobile. Triple play is one that most people would be familiar with, even outside of telecom. It's a bit older in the concept, because very few people now still have the standalone telephone service, but over the course of years, though, that old analog telephone has gone away, and people now have triple play service, voice, data, and often video, television service, all over the same service provider. So that was an early example of a digital transformation. From a workforce and operations perspective, this is an area where we likely see it common across many verticals. The idea is, how to transform processes, how to transform systems to make things more efficient, using automation to replace tasks that are done manually. Bonding data between management systems. So data that's updated in one system automatically propagates its way through to another system. That could even be across companies. So working with major customers, that updates from the customer's data automatically come through to us, such as orders and the like. So that's another area for transformation. Workforce consolidation and optimization is one. Again, having teams that are geographically diverse, that have a series of manual tasks, looking at how to pull them all together, make them more efficient so that a smaller team in a central location can serve a function. The third area, from the point of view of service, again, as a telecom service provider, how can we transform what we offer to our customers? So offering new features, greater self-service, virtualized functions so that they can get a service stood up in the cloud rather quickly. Those are all examples of service transformation. So these are all, again, you can tell, and as many others have said before, all of these fall under the umbrella of digital transformation, but these are all pretty different examples of potential projects. Okay. So now let's consider rolling up our sleeves and getting involved in the transformation path itself. Ideally, the idea is, again, that transformation is to save money. You get to have a better, more efficient service. Ideally, if you look at this cost graph here, you have from a simplistic view, you have a high cost. Ideally, you would transform, it would come down, and then in the future mode, you have a lower cost. Yeah, I mean, that's how it works, ideal. We all know that that doesn't work that way in the real world. So in the real world, you have these two bubbles that are superimposed over the line that drives up the cost in the interim. One is the investments that are required to enable the transformation project. The other is the additional operational expenses with the effort. So in the interim, digital transformation means running two solutions concurrently. You need project management to handle the transformation. The cost itself, if there's physical migration from what is the legacy solution to what is the next gen solution, getting everyone up to speed, training people up, and additional hiccups. People will make mistakes, will not be familiar with the new solutions. Hand holding is needed during the transformation period, and that all drives up the cost. So the idea is, how do you manage this? And we'll expand on that more in a second, but from a simple point of view, you have this bubble. You either want to flatten the bubble or you want to narrow this interim period here between the present and the future, and that's how you drive down the costs. So from that view, and let's expand on that a little more, because I mean, you either narrow the bubble or flatten it. That's a somewhat simplistic point of view, granted, and definitely the devil is in the details. How do you do that? So what are some of the challenges to face? Well, one is managing the costs, as I said. Well, How do you do it? You have to do detailed planning, prioritize, and really, program manage the heck out of the transformation. That's the key there. I mean, there's great value, but it needs to be looked at closely. It needs to be managed every step of the way to make sure that things are progressing well. What's the other challenge? Another challenge we face is uncertainty. No one has a perfect crystal ball. So we are transforming. We transform the network or the system or the company based on where we see the future going, but we also want it to be future proof. Things can change down the road. There could be additional risks. Security is one area that warrants close examination because um, the new transformed solution is new. The company's still on a learning curve for it, and it does open up the exposure to some risks before security is looked at closely. So, how to manage that again? Limit what is the upfront investment of a transformation. Generally, transformation projects are better if the cost and investment is managed over the life cycle with a minimum upfront. That minimizes the exposure to risk. Having the program management office look at it closely and manage uh, over the course of the project, looking at technology trends is another key area. And certainly security has to be a part of it. Third challenge we see in digital transformation is inertia or what we call hardware or a company culture. Um, Human nature, people are stuck in their ways. I mean, that's just generally a natural. There's processes that have existed within a company for years. You're baked in. People say, well, if it ain't broke, why fix it? We've always done things this way. It's successful. Why change? People also sometimes feel threatened by seeing a change. They consider it might be a risk to their jobs. Looking additionally, transformation requires new skills, requires familiarity with new systems that people need to learn, and there's always a certain level of resistance to that. And again, how do you work around that? Well, one of the key areas is looking at quick wins. It's part of the transformation program. It's great to have a plan for a transformation program that lasts over the course of 3 years or 5 years, and at the end of those 3 or 5 years, the company will be all the better for it. But generally, executives don't have patience. So that transformation of the 3 year plan, a 5 year plan, also needs to be um, matched with some quick wins, some projects or mini projects within the overall transformation that could show benefits of the program, within the first few months. And once those are gained, communicate closely and evangelize the value of digital transformation. Engage with executives, show the values, get their feedback, make sure they're on board. Those are all critical parts to the success of digital transformation. Some other areas, and these other areas are more specific to telecom, but I'm sure there are analogs to these 2 points that apply to most vertical industries. First is revenue retention. So let's not lose sight of the fact that telecom, as any other vertical, is a company, is an enterprise looking to create profit, to be profitable. And keep in mind that many legacy services that might have been offered that are maybe slotted for retirement under the transformation plan, such as, for instance, voice telephony within the context of telecom. These could be cash cows. They have high margin, they're successful. The sales teams within the company are comfortable with them and know how to sell them. And there's a certain amount of doubt or lack of knowledge with the new products and the new services. So how do you work around that? Again, in more evangelization, training, making sure that the account teams are familiar with the value and can go out to customers and sell them on the value prop of the transformation, sell them on the services that are now going to be offered, that while whatever the cash cow was that was there is going away, there's something new around the corner that will be better for them in the long run. And that's part of the discussion that needs to be managed and road mapped out to work with customers and the sales teams as well. The other area is from the point of view of regulatory compliance. Here in the U.S., we need to comply with the FCC, and in the UK with Ofcom, who's the British equivalent of the FCC. And many of the services that are offered do have requirements that need to be met. And that's again, health, I'm sure has, HIPAA, there's Sarbanes-Oxley, there's just about every vertical has their own, has their own set of regulations. And that's important to be kept track of. So for instance, one example in the UK has been universal phone service. We need to offer phone service to any resident anywhere in Great Britain that requires it or requests it. And as we move to a voice over IP infrastructure integrated with broadband, that becomes a challenge because we don't have the same footprint as we do for voice telephony, for traditional voice telephony. So, more of that training, that visibility, that evangelization comes into play, working with third parties such as account teams, customers, and also the regulators is key to the success of a transformation program. Okay. So one central point is the transformation office, and that's the central point that will oversee the program and will drive a lot of these key takeaways that I've been saying. The evangelization. How do you get the word out? And this is the team that needs to be at the central point, make sure that executives in the company are on board with the overall digital transformation. So there's three major branches of this transformation office. Again, the business and finance, making sure that the transformation stays on budget and doesn't have overruns. And additionally, where customer services are involved, also looking at the revenues and benefits. Is the transformation beneficial to the company? That's the key bottom line there in dollars and cents, or in our case, pounds and pence. The second point of view is from the technical office, the CTIO, and including security. So which I mentioned is key. That's the part I was saying regarding the uncertainty. As the technologies evolve, things take a 90-degree turn in standards. The CTIO and technical branch of the transformation office needs to stay closely on top of that to ensure that the overall transformation plan stays future-proof. That's a key. And the third is from the overall point of view of integration and program, making sure that the transformation occurs smoothly, that everyone in the company is on board with it, that any potential speed bumps or hiccups are ironed through quickly and managed accordingly. Okay. Another area, another key benefit or driver to benefit digital transformation is a creation of a green patch organization. As I mentioned a couple of slides ago, one of the challenges with digital transformation is inertia, is culture. People are set in their ways, and especially the case in larger, older companies where there's not a culture of transformation. And establishing that culture within a large company is a significant challenge. So one way to look at it, one way to do it is to start with a small team, and create a green patch bubble within the organization, taking people with more entrepreneur, more innovative mindsets, more agile minded, who will be the standard bearers for the transformation and drive that through. That, and by having a small nimble team to do that, it's easier to manage aspects of the transformation, get some of those quick wins under the belt, as I mentioned earlier. And as that gains momentum and success, you have the snowball effect, the snowball running down the hill. You grow the green patch team, you grow it, and you use that team to build and expand the culture within the company. So that's one of the key areas. Um, so that's the background. I think I'm a little bit over my time. Um, so just some of the key areas and lessons learned. Again, digital transformation can mean different things to different people. So, as long as it's beneficial to the business, it's all good. But, making sure people are on the same page and understand it is key. Um, you know, the big challenge as well there is it means different things to different people in the IT or ICT industry. Outside of it, to the non-technical people, it's still a bit of a black box and an unknown. How to manage that? A lot of communications, a lot of education is key. Create a plan, communicate it. If possible, set up mini newsletters or ways to get the word out to people, especially when you get some of those quick early wins. Go out and build them up, play them up, so that people get on the ride, get on board, and really create consensus and momentum for the program. Because if it stays small and people don't jump on the bandwagon, that's where the transformation becomes much more of an uphill climb. And again, that's a central point of the drivers or the transformation office and green patch. Those are the folks that will drive the culture to grow up and grow out through the company. So I think that's a couple of minutes over. I think
That's okay,
so.
Bob. I think you're ready to stop here and take questions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Good, good. So there's a question on the screen, but before we get to that, I have some. Let me first say, your talk reminded me a lot of my tenure in telecom. Certain acronyms I haven't heard in a very long time. PSTN. For those who don't know what that stands for, it's your plain old telephone, right?
Yes, public switch
Um,
telephone
yeah,
network.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the old traditional telephone that we
Right,
all had
right.
in our homes.
Yeah. What was the other acronym you had used? I forget. I think was it Jim on yesterday's call or somebody used the term CLEC, which somebody outside the telecom industry would have no idea what it is, right? Yeah,
Competitive
yeah, yeah.
local
I know,
exchange carrier.
I know, I know. So that, yeah. Anyway, so brought back memories. Question for you. One interesting observation in the slide where you showed a survey of non-technical people saying whether they've heard of certain technology or not. It is surprising that more people had heard of 5G than AI.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But keep in mind, though, I mean, again, this was in the UK, but think about here in the US, and let's not, let's take our techie hats off Think about when you watch like a regular football game or a TV
Yeah.
show, you get saturated with commercials from Verizon,
Right.
Lily from AT&T,
Yeah.
T-Mobile, and 5G is kind of down our throats.
Yeah.
How much AI advertising do you see? You don't see much. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You see AI in Hollywood media, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In tech media, those in the tech industry are more familiar, but
Yeah.
not outside it.
Right. Uh, so another comment you made was that from a telecom industry perspective, 5G deployment is a passive deployment, right? But
Y- Yeah.
I
I mean,
agree. I
from
agree. As a BT or Verizon, it's a passive deployment. I agree. But the real value to the industry derives from new innovative applications that people build upon 5G, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean,
Yeah.
5G from the point of view of a any other vertical that depends on telecom.
Hmm.
I have no control. So if I'm, like, I don't know, a bank,
Yeah.
I have no control of when 5G becomes available or not. That I depend on whoever my service provider is.
Yeah.
But like you say, 5G, once it's there, it will enable me as the bank to build, develop, applications or take advantage of it more
Yeah.
aggressively.
Yeah, for example, drone companies are relying on 5G, banking on 5G for communications, and self-driving automobile industry is banking on 5G for vehicle-to-vehicle communication or vehicle-to control station communication, right? So there
Correct.
are lots of innovative applications. I agree that from your perspective, it's a passive deployment to a business.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was what maybe passive was not the right word, but it is that two-step process. From a telecom perspective, the service provider rolls it out. I mean, AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile have their plans to roll out 5G throughout the U.S. From the customer perspective, that we're they're dependent on those plans, and it depends on the size. If it's a large multinational, that has presence all throughout the U.S., there might be some influence they can draw upon, whoever their partner is, whether it's Verizon or AT&T, to roll out the plan. But if it's a small bank with a couple of dozen branches throughout New Jersey, they're pretty much at the mercy of the service provider.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take a couple of questions from the audience here. So Lisa has a question here. I'm not sure the question or comment. Uh, can you read the question?
Okay, so yes, Lisa, issues of legacy systems not wanting to not only make the investment to new improved ways, but really bringing change management to bear. Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of an observation, and as I said, it was, as I said earlier, it is, companies, the idea to work that is through quick wins. There is a resistance, there is a inertia to say, well, my existing system's successful. Why do I want to get rid of it? Um, but this is something to keep, that
Yeah,
need to get that success,
yeah.
and drive that through executives.
And then Lisa has the last question on the screen. Is again a comment from Lisa. I think that's an observation, not a question, but yeah, yeah. People confuse 5G network and 5G Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, and that's a good point. I mean, especially, 5G network really is just mobility, and
yeah,
the idea is that it's only needed for applications such as you mentioned the self-driving cars, the IoT that need to be device where the devices need to be access to network at all times, things like that. 5G Wi-Fi or high speed Wi-Fi can be deployed in homes and in offices, and much quicker. And there's a lot of applications that could be drawn from that.
Right. And there is an interesting question from Ravi Rao talking about differences in approach in the UK and US on workforce development, which is an important factor in digital transformation.
That's a good question. What I do notice a key difference between the UK and the US, and certainly in just not just the UK, but Western Europe in general, are labor contracts and labor unions are much stronger, protect the workers a lot more than they do here in the US. So certainly the labor union reps and the government need to play a much closer role in any transformation project over there than they do here on this side of the Atlantic.
Right.
And especially there's a couple. I mean, certainly if the transformation will drive cost reduction in terms of less staff, obviously that's a key. That's a big issue. But even if it's just a matter of changing people's work requirements, they need to be upskilled or retrained, and that all their hours might change. Those are all things that the union needs to have a say in.
Yeah, important consideration. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have another question for you. So going back to the graph that you showed, where you have ideally a straight line going between current situation and a transformed situation,
Mhm.
right? And the
Yeah,
cost going down linearly. And in
sure,
reality, there's a bump because you have investments required to
sure.
make the transformation real. Uh, have you ever observed in your experience a transformation that goes the other way around, that goes below the straight line?
Mm,
So the
um,
thought in my mind there is that
mm,
digital transformation, in addition to being about adopting digital technologies, and in large enterprises like BT or Verizon, or your large customers, it's often a multi-year project with lots of resources required to make a transformation happen. That's fine, but the real spirit of digital transformation is about, you use the term agility. Uh, you use that, what do you call the green team, I forget, use
a
that team,
green patch,
yeah,
green
green
patch.
patch, you use that green patch team to figure out the best way to get from point A to point B on this
Yeah,
graph. Are there low hanging fruits that we can deploy first and get faster reduction in cost?
yeah, definitely. I mean, that's I guess a couple of things. One is from the point of view of that graph. I mean, it was really conceptual, and you're right. Any project, it does not move in a direct straight line. It may
Yeah.
go like that. And so to your point, yeah, definitely there's it could drop quicker early, and it depends on the specific project and
Mhm.
program.
Yeah.
But to your point, though, your key question, I think, goes back to the quick wins, and
Yeah.
that's, I think, the key, a key point to drive the culture. And it's so there's so many benefits. The idea is, what is that low hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Where can coming in, and if there's a 5-year program for transformation, well, what benefits can we get, our big share of benefits in those first 6 months that we can gain, so we can turn around and go all to the CXO suite and say, look how great digital transformation is. We've gotten, just in the first 6 months, we've gotten all these savings. And
Yeah.
that's how people their ears will perk up. They,
Yeah.
they'll engage with you. And that's definitely key.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think we are almost at 1:45
Yeah.
Eastern time. So thank you very much, Bob, for a
Thanks
wonderful
for having me.
presentation. Yeah, right, certainly.